I'm not being shown any conversation. I'm not being shown any people. I don't know what's going on. We shall see what's really strong. I would like to sing a song, and we know there's a flow that grows. Yes, we know there's a flow that knows us well. Yes, we know there's a flow that shows. 'Cause everybody knows, yes, everybody knows. As we arise, we can open our eyes. We can realize that this is far deeper than we may surmise, because the sunrise is an early dawn, and you know you're invited to be much more strong. Much more strong, learn to get along. Everybody knows that this is our song. What if we learn to communicate, dig down deep, and find out how to resuscitate the deepest of hopes that we can ever see? If you stare deep within you, I think you'd agree. When your mind expands beyond the demands of the ways that you've been living by commands. You've been living by commands that were never truly yours. You are deep within commitments that have opened every door. You would like to learn some more. You would like to get a tour of the future. Well, I'm telling you, this tour is for you. I love it when this happens. Weird stuff mixes it up. Some people tried to meet us in one place. It doesn't work, so we got to shift over to another. Now I can't even see if anybody's here. It shows me people are here, but I can't see you talking. So we're going to work with that. I probably wouldn't keep singing if I felt the words staring at me. So let's see. If I feel liberated, what am I going to do? If I feel liberated, what am I going to do? First of all, one of the most amazing moments of my life nobody knew about, because I thought everybody would think I was bonkers. Now, I'm somebody who's had a lot of interesting times when people could arguably present the hypothesis that I'm a little bit crazy. This one was over the top. Occupy Oakland, 2011. I was playing a pretty prominent role. I had one young fella come up to me and he said, "Have you done a lot of acid?" Okay, I think I understand you. he 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 was a blood. The Crips and the Bloods made peace at Occupy Oakland, which, for those of you, most of you who don't appreciate this, we were holding a space that could help them make peace. And I was helping to ground that shit. Now, I don't know if it's possible to communicate how intense that time was, because as far as I was concerned, the United States was going through a revolution and I was at the heart of it. My face was on television frequently. I'd have friends writing to me saying, "Oh my God, I saw you again." So I was not being vague about where I was standing. Made multiple speeches, said it's time for the whole world to change. But what I didn't tell people was I went on a walk one day. Now, for context, several hundred people are camping in front of City Hall. Wild, intense people. And I went on a walk. And when I went on a walk, I got this beam of light and it just came down into me. Now, we were having meetings twice a day. And we had a little council and we made presentations. I had made one proposal that we have quiet airspace because they were flying helicopters over every day. It's driving me batty. And it was accepted. It passed the council, although they did put a caveat in that we were not allowed to use firearms to try to shoot down the helicopters, which under the circumstances was a reasonable suggestion because somebody may well have done that. So I was working on my second proposal. That the year 2012, December 21st, the winter solstice, be the year 0. I believe in 100 years, this will probably be the case. This is the beginning of a new age, and I felt it screaming through like a lightning rod. I felt like a lightning rod for energy that was just inexplicable. I was at the peak of this, like, and I could feel this chant, this surging, moving through me, shifting things around me. I almost got arrested like 30 times. 30 times. And I just like, whoosh, whoosh. These are not the droids you're looking for. It was incredible. Let those who have ears hear. Today's a wild ride because to get this, you have to appreciate that really and truly, the last age was an age in many ways that ended up being dominated by this thing that calls itself Christianity. But what they did was formulate a conception of a being that they essentially chose to use as the boundary. For 2,000 years, they used this individual as a boundary, and they had a false conception of who he is. First of all, he's never left. So, it's sort of like someone's trying to have a conversation with you, and can I not have a book here? Someone's trying to have a conversation with you, and you're just like, excuse me, I'm reading about Jesus. And Jesus is like, hey, dude, I'd like to teach you about, no, excuse me, I'm reading about the sacred Messiah, Jesus, leave me alone. And Jesus is like, hey, can we talk? I was trying to teach you to be like me. That was the point. If you're not going to listen when he's right here, like, what is this reality where they put things in a book that contradict the truth, and then they won't listen to the truth? This next age, the new age, the new one, you heard of it, right? The new one is about all of us learning to embody crystalline consciousness. Now, first of all, the fundamental boundary that's difficult to transcend. You have to be willing to conceive of yourself as capable of this. But when multiple people are doing it, it takes on a very different role. No, you are not the Messiah. A lot of folks get in touch with this and they get a little lost. No, you are not you are of the second coming, shall we say. To be this is to share this. To share this is to know that the spirit of the earth is what moved through Jesus Christ. And the spirit of the earth has moved through many. And this is what happens when you become crystalline, Christ aligned. The puns are not vague. The words are here to help us. Trust it. To be Christ aligned is to be complete. So you're not fractured within yourself. And we could do the work to make this real. We could do the work to make this real. Is real. It's right there. It's right here. To be real is to be fully within yourself. Now, folks can make this confusing, but you don't need to. You don't need to. Be present with this. If you have any significant aspect of yourself that you're not at peace with, you are fractured. That means you sort of wish that this wasn't you. You sort of wish you were not who you are. Well, guess what happens when you sort of wish you were not who you are? One could think that you're shifting your attention somewhere else, but what you're really doing is splitting your attention. So you take a finite space of energy and you split off part of it. There's no other way to do this. So you think you're shifting your attention and transforming yourself, but you're only wishing. Now, it's a functional step. Good for you. You're trying to become something like this. But in order to do it, you have to address whatever you've cut off. To address whatever you've cut off, you need to be bigger than that. Crystalline. Now, this is sort of complicated and sort of simple. Let's imagine that you are surrounded by the colors of the rainbow. You know these little computer wheels that show you all the colors? You're in the middle, okay? And you're trying to conceive of yourself as something other than what you are. Now, again, your instinct is to say, I'm going to move my mind into this conception of something that I call good or desirable. And you're going to try not to think about something else. But your consciousness has to be a little more practical. Your consciousness is actually going to mix and match colors. It's going to say, okay, for whatever reason, you're rejecting purple. And you're driving towards green. Now, you don't think of it this way because you don't have a holistic conception. When you're inside of it, you can't tell what you're doing on a certain level. You can't even access the recognition that these are different hues of light. And you can learn to, through the commitment to say, I want to be all of myself. You start with this. You don't succeed. You just start with the commitment to be all of yourself. When you begin with this commitment, you start to recognize your shadows. And ironically enough, your shadows are actually existent in different frequencies of light. Now, it's almost as simple as you are not at peace with the aspects of yourself that are purple. You're not at peace with the aspect of yourself that are in tune with an aligned mind that directs you, drives you, leads you into the future. You're not at peace with lime. You're not at peace with money. Money's hurt you. You've been mistreated. You had it programmed into your head that you had to suffer to get money. So you tried to reject money. You're rejecting lime green energy. You don't have the fuel to make your intentions real. Every choice to reject a part of yourself has unintended consequences. And as soon as you've done this, you are not whole. You are not crystalline. You are not Christ-aligned. To be Christ-aligned is to transcend this rejection of part of yourself. Now, here's the terrible truth. When you reject a part of yourself for long enough, you start to push it away in a manner that creates a deeper rift. So it's not just uncomfortable anymore. You're really doubling down. You're really trying to believe that you are something that is not a part of you. You had a terrible breakup when you were younger. So you start to reject orange energy within yourself. You start to reject it because you start to equate relationship love with pain. And once you've identified it with pain, you are literally, every time a part of you rears up and says, I really want to share in this way, you reject it. You push against it. So unbeknownst to you, you're rejecting this orange energy. As soon as you start to reject this orange energy, that's resident. Now, this is a lesson that many folks share, and I really want you to prioritize learning it. When you reject something, you are amplifying it on a certain level. Now, you have to be able to say no. But if you build your personality around, I am someone who doesn't have relationships, well, a part of you wants to be whole. So this orange energy is going to come back, and then you're going to say, I am someone who doesn't do that. So you're grounding your mind in a rejection. If you truly want to diminish an influence in your life, you have to be kind of cold-hearted about it. You simply say, how can I have less of that? And then you hold this question again and again, how can I have less of that? How can that be less present? If you scream at it, it might get stronger. Certainly, if you scream at it every time it makes an appearance in your mind. And here's this difficult part. If you keep rejecting within your consciousness, you'll start to attract other people who accentuate it. The rejection is actually loud. You're trying to keep it on the other side of your wall, but it's very loud from the outside. From the three-dimensional plane, people are just feeling the presence of this. And so they get magnetized towards it if they actually have an imbalance in this. Karma works this way. There's this magnetism where somebody with an excess will be magnetized to somebody with a rejection. So then they presence themselves and you're like, I don't like people like that. And it just gets louder. And now you've externalized your problems. This is the age of Pisces. What Christ did was make an appearance in a manner, by the way, that other beings did as well. And this appearance was whole. So every single person in the presence of whole light, Amanda rejects green. Patrick rejects purple. Ramon rejects red. All these people have these little trips in their head about what they're rejecting within themselves, right? Well, on your own, you could magnetize to other people who are like, they let you be you. They're like, yeah, cool, man. Like, I'm not trying to accentuate red. So Ramon can be friends with people who are just like, they're not big on accentuating red. And Amanda rejects green, and she's going to like attract other people who are like, maybe they don't reject it. Maybe they do, but it's just not prominent. But anyone who's crystalline, presence is all light. So they're going to piss Amanda and Ramon and Patrick off for different reasons. Because you can't hide from pure light. So when everyone is living in a world where all on a head trip, but a unique, different head trip, but they share in common that they are rejecting something about themselves. And then a being comes into their presence, that presence is all this light. They're like, whoa, he's the problem. Hence, crucifixion. That's the past 2,000 years. That's the past 2,000 years. Different cultures have collectively been biased towards some hues and away from others. This was in the workings of our skin. Our hue itself is built into systems that reject some colors and embrace others. And thus we can have some degree of coherence, but none of it is Christ aligned. None of it. And now we come to this age, when I invite you to embrace this deep transition. We are already in the new age. It started 12 years ago. We are coming to the end of a 12-year cycle, which is significant. Now, 12 is a powerful number, and in the future, people may well use it more frequently. We have been basing our reality around his story. Take a random guess why we chose 10 as a prominent number. Now, for those of you who haven't thought about this, it's kind of mind-blowing in an exciting way. So help a friend out. Be present with someone who needs to go through this. Choosing the number 10 is not, it's not random. It's based in this. It's based in this. This is why we chose the number 10. If we had 6 fingers on each hand, we would probably have chosen 12 to make a prominent base. They call it base 10. We live in base 10 because that's when we start the initial cycle over. If we had 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, and I'm sorry, I know it's scary that 7, 8, 9, but you got to move past this, all right? 7, 8, 9, and then we have Ting, and Zo. And then we have what would be 12. But we have different characters all the way up to 12 when the cycle would start over. That would be called base 12. The reason such incredible shifts happen when you shift to base 12 is that there's this dynamic relationship with vibration. Vibrationally, 12 has a deep coherence, which is why music uses it as a foundation. It would not be functional to use base 10 with music. Music uses what we know of as a chromatic scale of 12 notes. And this cycle starts over because there's an internal coherence to it. I always want to go deeper into the math of this and realize that it's probably not functional for many of you. But be present with this trust. And I really encourage you to go deeper into it and learn and share with each other. The math of music makes 12 notes fundamental. Fundamental. Now, another perspective on why this works. You have a note. A note has a frequency, which means it has a wavelength. When you cut this note in half, it sounds very beautiful. When you double this, if we're exact, this wavelength, half doubled, and then half again, all three of those notes, half, double that, all three of those notes are called a C or a D. Every time you cut a note in half or double it, it actually keeps the same name because it resonates in such deep harmony. It's a lower D or a higher D, but it's still a D. This coherence enables music. It enables music. Now, if I have a ball, 2, 3, I don't know if this is going to work, guys. 4, 5, 6. 6 balls fit exactly around one ball. 6 balls fit exactly around one ball, and 3 fit on top of it, and 3 fit on the bottom. Now, I want you to do this. Get 13 balls. 3 sit on top, 3 sit on the bottom. We've been through this 2 years ago, I think, is the last time I did this. What is this? This is 12 around 1. This is also the foundation of the flower of life. Now, I've been to Capernaum. Capernaum is where Jesus started his ministry. There is a flower of life carved in stone in a temple that existed before Jesus. I don't know why this didn't make the headlines. It's right there. It's carved in stone. I'll show you a picture. Join our membership space, the sanctuary. Incidentally, please consider joining our membership space, the sanctuary. It's our online sacred school, temple, hospital. We share with each other. We empower each other's practices. We open space to honor, revere the process that each of us goes through as we attune with these lights and as we challenge ourselves to be at peace with all aspects of ourselves. I will share this picture in the sanctuary. The art of understanding what's happening here begins with a recognition that when I have 6 balls around 1, and then I put 3 on top and 3 on the bottom, I have 12 around 1. Jesus, 12 disciples. What this is 12 spheres fit around 1. There is a coherence to 12 being close to 1 in this way. Now, everybody beyond that has a different relationship. You can have a sacred and an internally coherent resonance with 12 that it then aligns with music. When you align this with music, you can make songs, energetic songs of light. But you can't do it if you're rejecting any of these frequencies. If you are rejecting any of the frequencies within yourself, you cannot be present with whole light, because whole light contains all of the frequencies of light. We are the light that exists once it's run through the prism of the earth. Prisms fracture light so you can see the color. There's an incredible beauty to this. But if you fracture the light, you see the color, then you reject one of those colors, you can't be present with whole light, or it will trigger your internal struggle. That's what happens every time. Incredible new light comes into the world. It evokes dreams, hope, possibility, passion, and then trigger. People start to freak out again and again and again. Look at his story. This has happened again and again and again. The sacred divine presence on this earth has introduced us to pure light. It drives our evolution, our transformation, but then it brings all the pain and the confusion and the internal rejections to the surface. And our internal rejections are born in the trauma that came from the past. If you are just tuning in, I encourage you to watch up until now. Start at the beginning. Review. When people are rejecting a frequency of light, they're doing it based in trauma, invariably. They had a terrible experience when they evoked orange energy with another human being, so they decide to reject orange. They had a terrible experience when they invoked lime green energy, which is correlated to the solar plexus, which is correlated to intentions, dreams, and money. I had a terrible experience with this, so you avoid that frequency so you can't be complete. We make decisions to reject frequencies of light when we get hurt so badly in their presence or in their invocation that the only determination we come out of that with is, I never want to go through this again. It's sane, it's rational on a certain level, it's just not functional. Because the only way to be complete is to re-engage whatever trauma you went through and reclaim the essence. It is not the fault of the frequency that you didn't know how to be present with the frequency. It is not the fault of the frequency that you had a drama that largely involved that frequency. The frequency is amoral in this sense. And to the extent that you trace the frequency to its roots in the living presence of the earth, the frequency is love. The frequency is born out of love. But love will show you yourself. If you have internal contradictions in how you think and act, if you have an innate lack of presence with your instincts, greed is still in you. So you aim for too much. You aim for too much of one element of yourself. It has to come from somewhere. You're sacrificing something else. When you sacrifice that other thing, you start to generate reality out of balance. When you generate reality out of balance, you often end up in trauma and pain. Once you've been through that pain, you might struggle to make sense of it. And in frustration, you simply reject a basic frequency in effort to never experience that pain again. It doesn't work. It does not work. And this has been the story of the past 2,000 years. People trying and failing to make these stories work again and again and again. And the true purpose was to teach us that it doesn't work. I know that might sound obscure. I had someone recently share the comment, the poignant, passionate comment. Why? Why have we had to move through all this pain? The simple, basic truth is that we've had to move through it and let it go. The simple, basic truth, very consequential realization coming here, is that we live in bodies that could live much longer, and they will. In 200 years, lifespans will be greatly extended. And not by science, not by drugs, by alignment with consciousness that prevents us from believing in ways of being that deteriorate our life force over the course of decades or combinations of 12 years. By tuning into pure light, we stop the struggle. When you are within yourself, you're a rainbow. I give you a rainbow, you immediately say, okay, I reject lime green and indigo blue. This is happening inside you. You're rejecting part of yourself. You're trying to say, I am not lime green or indigo. This is happening inside you every fucking day. Makes you sick. Makes you sick. But everybody's doing it. We are surrounded by people, cultures entirely designed around the process of partial rejection of ourselves. And as a result, we don't recognize that what we think of as a built-in limitation to how long we can live is actually generated by this internal. And it's happening in different ways. This is the tragedy of it, is some people are rejecting one frequency and other people are rejecting another. And when they reject these frequencies, they end up playing these opposite roles for each other. So it's actually quite intense, because you could, if you're rejecting lime and someone else is at peace with lime, and then they're rejecting indigo, but you're at peace with indigo, you come close, they'll hit your lime and you'll hit their indigo, and you have a rivalry. You have a very charged rivalry. You've been around people who, if they're in the room, you can't think about someone else, but you don't like this person. It sucks, right? It just sucks. I don't want to be focused on that person. I have all these other people I appreciate more, but for whatever reason, I'm focused on this person. Here's why. This is why. Now, look at that. 31 minutes. I'm going to take a yoga break. First of all, I really appreciate your likes. I do. It helps us grow. Base level, when I see that more people like a certain day, it feels great. I'm grateful to you. I'm honored to be a part of your life. Thank you for spreading the love and showing me in whatever way feels best. Now I'm going to do something simpler than normal. I've just made a video about this, and I highly encourage you to do. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to explain it. So, no, I'm not. I already changed my mind. There is an arc in many yoga poses where if you find where on the arc you are best suited to rest, you're going to have an incredible time. But a lot of minds will always go past that point. In order to find this point, I'm going to encourage you to identify two. Your natural ease, which is the first position where you still feel natural. It's like you can move there kind of easily, ease. This is the first point, because it's often very valuable and you could stay there. And then your edge. Your edge is the absolute point, which is as far as you could go. Now, and without hurting yourself. So there's still joy in it. When you identify yourself between these two extremes, or these two points of recognition, you could have a good experience in so many different yoga practices. If you always go past your edge, you won't like it and you won't do it. So I'm going to do something. It's likely a lot of you can't do this, but I want you to find where you could do something close to what I'm doing. Upper leg, swing around. Pigeon. I'm not going to change it. Support yourself as much as you need to. Square the hips. Reach back. Get the wall. Now you could. That's something. You could. That's something. You could. That's something good too. So honestly, identifying where you're at for real is actually the best way to make progress by far. And if you honestly identify it and then find your joy, find where you're enjoying it, then you want to get up and do that. Like I just wanted to get up and do that because I knew I was going to have fun. Now, for the record, I had a good practice yesterday and I had 10 minutes this morning. I didn't have enough this morning. I cannot encourage you enough. Check out Wild Chakra Yoga. It's linked in the description. I'm doing my best to teach you a wide range of yogic skills. And this is wild. So this morning, for instance, I have a simple routine, which I will do in the kitchen while making coffee and putting together the breakfast for the kids. Because I got up a little late for whatever reason. I stayed up later last night. I slept in by my standards. And then, whoosh, hey, life is going fast. Well, I still need to loosen up. And so I do certain exercises in the kitchen while I get breakfast ready, and it's fun. And I don't feel guilty about it. It's just what I got to do. And it limbers me up enough that my wife and I started practicing this new viral TikTok challenge where she could brace one leg against me and I could pull her other leg up. I'm so excited. We're going to get this one. Going to get you, kids. We can do this. We can do this. All right, peoples, listen up. I don't know why I can't see you today. I don't know if you can talk with each other. Maybe comment if you can, but I don't see the chat comments. So I'm going to take a breath here. It's enough. It's enough. I care so much about this process in you, in many, because the light is streaming in and it's streaming in from above and below. There's a particular connection that happens when the spirit of the earth and the light of the sun, the energies come together. Soul. Our sun is called soul. You know this? It's not a vague connection. Our soul is our light body. You got to go this deep for these things to make sense. That's why we keep doing this periodically. When you arrived at this star, you incarnated in a form around this star into a soul. Your soul is not eternal. People get these definitions confused. Thoth grounded me deeply in them, clearly delineate. You have something beyond a name, beyond your soul, your eternal presence. It exists. It's not going to disappear, but it's not your soul. Your soul existed when you arrived at this sun. You incarnated into a solar body, a solar presence. As you cross the threshold into the sun's internal presence, the sun has an aura that reaches past the Kuiper belt. It's a very distinct place that's very hot. When you became a part of this, you incarnated into a soul. Then, when your soul approached the earth and you chose to incarnate on the earth, you incarnated into a spirit of the earth. Spirit is intrinsically connected to the earth, just like soul is connected to the sun. It is this simple. When your soul waits for you to learn how to be with your spirit in a body, it's known as your higher self. Pretty cool, huh? You could communicate with it, but for the reasons we discussed earlier, you can't have your soul fully present because your soul is pure light. As a human consciousness, you're carrying karma. Karma exists within fractured energies of light. It exists as rivalries and tensions and imbalances between the frequencies of the rainbow. When you reconcile, as you reconcile the frequencies of the rainbow within yourself, you start to open space to connect to your soul. This can be a long phase. So you get to the point where you can receive messages from your higher self, which is not fully in your body because you can't handle it. When your soul is fully present in you, every major internal contradiction comes to the surface like that. Shadow work. It ends up being, it all fits together, peoples. Your shadow work involves you coming to terms with the fact that if you've been rejecting money, a part of you obsesses about money. If you've been rejecting transcendent paranormal thinking, a part of you is obsessed with transcendent paranormal thinking. Have you noticed, by the way, I appreciate all of you who hang out in the comment sections. They're getting more spicy, shall we say. Words of like terrified Bible study students come through and they're like, you're talking to demons. You must, give up on demons and only accept Jesus Christ, your Redeemer. And I'm sitting here like, I talk to Jesus every day. But that's not what their Bible says. But they're obsessed with this. They're drawn towards transcendent prophetic insights into how this world really works. And their obsession is woven with their rejection. It's a very unhealthy dynamic. And if any of you are here listening, recognize yourself. A part of you loves it and a part of you hates it. It's like someone who has strong homosexual tendencies being an advocate against homosexuality in their community. So they're fighting within themselves, but they try to externalize it because they're trying to only identify with part of themselves. It's like someone who is terrified of pornography, or someone who is an advocate against pornography publicly and secretly indulges, shall we say. When you fight things on a certain level, you've already lost. The only way to win is to know the truth, that the origin of this struggle is inside of yourself. The true warrior does it inside. You know yourself as the desire and the rejection. And you become so strong in your ability to recognize both of these forces as you that you're able to hold a bigger space. You stop identifying with one polarity or the other, or usually both, going back and forth, right? Rejection, acceptance, rejection, repression, repression, expression, repression, expression. You stop this cycle of bouncing between polarities and you hold a space that's bigger than both and you go, clearly I've got some work to do. What can I do to reconcile these forces? And it's like taking two kids that are fighting and being the parent of them within yourself. And what you are literally doing is reconciling different hues of light within yourself. You can't just prioritize one hue and diminish or demean or demonize another. I mean, you can, but let me know how that works out for you. Because if you keep doing it, you are just creating this internal, and that's loud. This is spiritually, energetically loud. And your contradictions magnetize people. Your contradictions magnetize people who dovetail into them. I spent my first several years on YouTube being kind of scared of the comment section because I wasn't as healthy as I am now, just 5 years later. As soon as I put my sign up, as soon as I started broadcasting, I'm louder, literally, right? I'm louder, I'm casting a broader net, and I attract people who contradict me. I was raised heavily Christian, so I still attract these swoops of judgment. But the more I'm able to identify and know within myself that these are an externalization of the process that's happening internally, the better it works. I'm able to receive each new thing without being triggered. You appreciate what triggering is. When you learn to appreciate what triggering is, you start to be thankful for it. Someone who triggers you is showing you where your internal contradiction is. Woohoo! Thank you. Now I can work on that. This is not a mental trick. This is real. The goal is to internalize. Whoa, that was cool. I got a slidey. The goal is to internalize the fight. But please understand, the fight is already internalized. The fight has always been internalized. So the goal is to know yourself as the one who's struggling within and bring these elements of your struggle into your conscious awareness. I cannot emphasize this enough. It might seem way over the horizon that you're at peace, that you're happy, that you're well. I'm not claiming to be perfectly aligned all of the time by any measure. But I am very grounded in knowing myself. I'm very grounded as someone who, when I get triggered, I go, what? Let me tell you the biggest, best relationship advice that I have ever learned myself, in my opinion. When you are fighting with someone you love, when you are fighting with your partner, first of all, commit to solidly recognizing when you've crossed into useless territory. You're mean. You're both mean. So there's nothing good that's going to come of that. Separate. Separate. When you can't take a walk at this moment, it's a sign that you're so fundamentally driven by codependent loneliness that is your first priority. You must learn how to be with yourself. So that's the first recognition you could have. You are probably fighting that way because you are so lonely that you've become codependent, and you would rather have the presence of someone who's fighting with you than to be by yourself. First lesson. Second lesson. Once you're by yourself, completely disregard any message in your mind that's articulating what they are doing wrong. Just say no. Just sit there. Nope. I don't trust that. I don't trust that. I don't trust that. I don't trust that. Do it again and again and again. This is time for fierce will because it's bullshit. You're by yourself now. This is your goal, to be at peace by yourself in that presence that has been lonely. You're by yourself. It's not your job to think about what they need to change. You don't fucking know. You see a side. You probably see something that they're struggling with, but I assure you, you do not see it accurately because it's tied into your loneliness and confusion. So presume you don't see it accurately. You're going to focus on you. What can you do? Over time, this is a discipline. It can take years. Anybody who's here watching for a one-day life-changing event, you're going to have to stick around years. We have folks here who've been working for years in these practices, and you are making incredible, inspiring progress. The rest of you need to know the OG here. We've got people taking a teacher training. The commitment level that's necessary to transform yourself into a healthier person. I assure you, constantly surfing YouTube isn't going to do it. At a certain point, you need to ground in and make a commitment. We have that available for you here. Search through the description to see the many resources that we're building and growing with each other. In this commitment, you learn to make this transition. It could take more than a year to just know you have to stop arguing at a certain threshold. And you can learn the character. I mean, in retrospect, it's obvious, but when you're in it, it's hard, right? When you're in it, it feels like you just have to make this point. And occasionally you'll make a fierce point and they'll shut up and you'll be able to feel righteous, right? The energy shifts. They accepted your pressure for a moment. It's a fool's game. It's a terrible, awful pattern. You're never going to really win. If you're winning over someone you love, that's not winning. It's just part of turning the cycle over and over again. So the first thing you need to do is recognize that you're in this bullshit. You're in this terrible meanness. It's mean. And separate. And the second thing you need to do is learn to focus on yourself once you separate. And you're going to notice this voice saying, they da-da-da-da-da, they have to stop da-da-da-da, I can't believe da-da-da-da-da, and maybe even worse, my ex didn't do that, or that other person might not do that. Look, if the grass is looking greener, maybe you need to water your own grass. I like this one. If the grass is looking greener, maybe you need to water your own grass. If you are able to take space within a fight with someone you love and then focus on yourself, you are doing the work to reconcile the inherent loneliness that you bring into the relationship. Loneliness as a primary fuel for relationship is codependence. Codependence inhibits you from facing yourself honestly. You have to be able to take space when you fight and learn to self-reflect. And it is in this self-reflection that you will be able to thank that person for loving you enough to stay close to you, to trigger you. Because your triggers are the window into the ways that you have internally decided, I am not this. I am rejecting a part of myself. And when you reject part of yourself, you can't be pure light. I hope this elegance fits. Do you feel it? Because the way this connects together, it's like the biggest expanse of big picture and personal, right? Like most people could probably relate to this sequence I was just talking about. And to learn to appreciate how fundamentally impossible it is to create goodness out of these fights. There's a certain character to fighting with someone you love where you're trying to win. If you can't both win, you've already lost. So once you keep the discipline of recognizing when you're in that space and just say, I got to take a walk. Oh man, everything gets better. And this is where I want to bring you, all right? The act of committing to being whole is a fundamental transition. As I said, I'm not claiming anything really other than that I'm committed to this. Thus, when I get triggered, I stare at myself. And at this point, I'm pretty good at it. So I'm able to go into myself and realize the struggle within. The struggle has always been within. Every war has been generated by people who have internal turmoil that they are trying to externalize. And they just get a lot of other people to be on their side trying to externalize their internal turmoil. Every war, every single war exists for this reason. Whole societies have been not at peace within themselves. Whole societies are identifying with parts of themselves and trying to reject parts of themselves. And every once in a while, it catalyzes. So the energy they're generating in the world gets flung at someone else. And for whatever reason, that someone else is flinging energy back at them. This community rejects red. This community rejects blue. Sound familiar? This community rejects blue. This community rejects red. So they just fling at each other. One community, every time they think about themselves, they are identifying the redness within themselves as the problem, the badness. This is what's wrong. This is what needs to stop. This is what needs to be controlled. Another community identifies the blueness as the problem. This is trying to take too much control. This is trying to exert too much attention. This is trying to dominate the music of life. And then they fight because they've both decided within themselves that they are going to reject something. And they happen to be rejecting opposite things. Blue and red. We're going to watch this played out in the United States just next week. When you polarize in these ways, nobody's really right. Nobody's really right. But let me tell you a little secret. The earth will drown us before she'll burn us down. Let those who have ears hear. The crystalline consciousness of this age is meant to be born in all of us. Those of you who have begun to access this, please tell us. Those of you who've gone through the movement in your mind that says, you are the Messiah, you are the Christ. It's true. You're just not alone. The world looks very different as we accept that this second coming is not an individual hero. That is a story of his story. That is his story. We are not in his story anymore. We are already in the new age. December 21st, 2012. We are in the new age. Call that the year zero. We are almost at the end of the 12th year. This is the first cycle of the new age. And with the end of this cycle, something is going to happen. Gaia is no longer going to let us throw away our own energy. She's not going to allow us. It will not function. She has allowed us to throw away our own energy for a very simple reason. We get so out of balance in the rejection of something within ourselves that it is more functional to get rid of the accumulated charge. Now, unfortunately, this is much more complex than I can explain in the last 5 minutes. But suffice it to say, if you spend several years constantly saying that your instinct to feel red is the enemy, you are building something within yourself. You are actually generating energetic resonance. It's the repetition of a belief pattern generates energetic resonance. So the belief pattern itself exists within you. And that's where the roots of the problem are. But it grows something into the world. And so that would be the grass, long, high grass it's toxic. You are rejecting, you are creating a rejection plant of energy. It's twisted, it's sick, it's Halloween. This rejection energy becomes so unwieldy that it's better to just cut it. And when we cut it and dump it, we get to start over. But the consequence of this is people don't learn because they've gotten rid of it. Nothing has forced them to address the roots as the problem. They're unburdened. They no longer feel the imbalance. That is ending. And here's the simple way it devolves. People live in fear of being cold and being hungry. It's one of the most, it's the root primal fear. People live in fear of being cold and being hungry. People overeat because they are trying to address their fears of more complex issues with the fears of the basics. Cold and hunger are things we think we can control. So if you work hard enough within society, you can make more money, you can make more food, you can get a bigger house, you can keep your heater strong. When people try to deal with their fear of loneliness and the passion of intimacy and how they channel their personality and community, stage fright, social anxiety, when people take all these more complicated fears and they don't know what to do with them, they bring it back to the fear of food and the fear of cold. But notice what's happened here. Food and cold, these are of the earth. So we poison the earth more to get cheaper food. That's what we've chosen to do as a global society right now. We have deprioritized healthy food and we've chosen cheaper food. But it's bad food. It's poisoned. Do you know they actually spray pesticides on food that is done? There's no weeds. These herbicides are not necessary to kill plants anymore. The food is grown. But when you spray herbicide on it, it closes. The wheat will trigger to close and end its growth cycle. So it's ready to harvest. So they can harvest all of it at the same time. It's pure mechanics. It's pure brute force farming. And those poisons get in your body. And I'm suggesting you make a direct link. The reason we put up with the food system the way it is because we have fear. And we want to address our fear in the form of something that's tangible because we think we can do something about it. So rather than look deeper inside yourself, you go get a snack. And that snack, likely a bad pastry with sugars and grains that are poisoned. They're toxic. So we're poisoning ourselves so we can go through the habit again and again and again of having a snack rather than looking deeper within. We strive for a bigger house. We strive for stronger walls. We dream of an expansion to our house rather than looking inside ourselves. Now, I'm not saying never have a nicer house. I'm saying be conscious of how you're dreaming. Are you dreaming for more accumulation because you're hiding from the forces within you? The earth is about to say no. I will no longer let you poison the waterways. That's the consequence. That's the consequence of poisoning the food. The poisons go all around the food. The rain comes, drives it out of the fields, goes into the streams, goes into the creeks, goes into the lakes, goes into the rivers, goes into the ocean. Heat. Heat. We're burning. We're burning to make heat. Way too much heat. We're burning to make light. That's the third. We make light. In my town, these lights are on all the time at night. Don't you dare suggest they turn those lights off. Turn those lights off, people have to face their fears. Their fears live in the dark. One person gets mugged, every street has to be lit. And I'm an asshole for suggesting otherwise, right? But this comes at great consequence. We are burning to keep all these lights on. You can see all these lights from space. You can see fires lit on the fumes of the abandoned gas mines from space. North Dakota looks like they have huge cities all over the place because they have so many fires burning all the time. These three fears, cold, lack of food, lack of light, means that we are burning and poisoning, and the earth is about to say no more. That's what happens at the end of this year. Watch it happen. The challenge is for each of us individually to stare into our fears, to stare beneath them into the tangles, to reconcile them and own it so we can become pure light. But to do this, you have to be committed to doing the work for years. Welcome, wildflowers. This is your time. Do the work with ice. See you soon. Head over to wildflowerfire.com, sanctuary. Go there now. We're about to meet, share a meditation. So there's a join button on a Zoom. It's a Google Meet online gathering. We share a meditation, have a little conversation. It's good to be with you. Much love. Be with you and your families.